was super nervous. Went into the I guess office, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they pointed me in the direction where to go. Guy ended up helping me. So we're both like looking around. He's kind of looking, not really sure what I'm looking for, but I'm kind of looking too. And then he points and he's like, "Oh, he's right there." Like where? Like
Yeah.
no. What are they called? The little things with your name and the dates, the plaque, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
No.
Nothing. And I'm like, my grandma said like he had one of the flat things. Like, are you sure this is where he is? And he's like, well, what? He probably had a temporary thing, a temporary plaque on his thing. That's probably what she remembers. And I'm like, of all these years, 29 years, he's had nothing on it. Like, I didn't say that, but I'm thinking that. So that made my emotions worse.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, he literally took one of those like skinny like metal sticks, whatever it was, and put it there so I knew where to even look. I was hurt, I was mad, I was annoyed. I'm like,
so you're walking around the cemetery looking for what should be his name on the placard,
right,
and he just points you to
uh,
a piece
in
of
between
grass.
two plaques.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, I find out later that my dad's side of the family, like his brothers, sisters, mom, whoever, was saying that they would be the ones that were supposed to handle that. They obviously didn't handle that. Like, I was very, very annoyed. So I asked them like what it would cost to get one of those, because that's like I don't know why it bothers me so much, but it bothers me that there's nothing there with So she gave me a paper. It's pretty costly, but I'm gonna make sure that I get.
Are you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm so annoyed that they just left him like that, and it makes me wonder, like, dang, would they know? Did they? No, they know because they didn't do it, and even if for whatever reason they thought maybe he does have something there, that would just show that they've never cared enough to even show up. Because if any of them came there, they would have knew that there was nothing there. So in 29 years, y'all didn't stop there once.
Yeah, and you would think that somebody along the line would have said, "Hey, we need to get his."
There's plenty of y'all. There's like 40 of y'all, not literally, but there's a lot of y'all. Like, so I could see if it was all on one person. Like, it's kind of costly. Maybe they just didn't have the money to do it.
Yeah.
All y'all could put a couple $100 aside. You mean to tell me after 29 years you didn't have a couple $100 to put aside to make sure y'all all can get him his thing? Like, you guys just didn't care.
Because at the end of the day, he's a person who lost his life.
Right.
And he deserves at least that.
They paint a like picture of like, oh, we loved him so much. No, you didn't. Like, you might have thought you did, but you didn't. Like, and I feel like that just solidified it for me. Like, I felt like how they were with me, like, once the hype of like getting to know me was kind of gone, once they were actually able to, because when I was younger my mom kept me away from all of them. But then, and it was always like, look, we need to be able to see her, we need to be able to see her. But then once I was able to, it was like I saw 3 of his siblings all of one time. One of them was actually one of his brothers I saw by accident, and then his sister I saw twice, and one of those times was an accident. So, yeah. I know no reach outs, no check-ins, no nothing. Like, I don't talk to them.
Yeah. It's not only the loss of your father, but it's also the loss of like that whole side of the family.
The whole side of the family.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even sure I can name them all, to be honest. I was super frustrated when I saw that, because I'm like, nobody cared enough to like make sure he had something. Like I said, it's not like it would just be on one person. Like there's plenty of y'all. Put a couple dollars aside to make sure he had something there.
And even if it takes, you know, a couple months or a couple of years.
Whatever it is. But
to
29 years,
Yeah.
no way. No way you couldn't find a couple $100 each in 29 years.
And isn't it interesting how the first time you go visit him and already you want to be the one to do that, and you didn't even have a relationship with him,
Right.
you know,
Right.
you only knew him for the first 2 years of your life,
Not even.
and now coming to the point of like, this is my dad, he at least deserves that.
Right. Even just being like a person, like even if, you know, you guys didn't have the best relationship, but he's still your brother at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, so all that aside, he's still your brother, you know?
Yes. Things happen sometimes, and it can definitely break a family apart, and even if people, you know, are related, doesn't mean they have those close ties.
Right.
And that's unfortunate. But unfortunately, it's true
Yeah.
in a lot of cases. So,
But the thing is, like, they had, like, my grandma was already paying for the funeral and all that stuff. So it's like they took it upon themselves to be like, oh, we got the plaque. So, like, you didn't have to do that. You could have just let her pay for it and she would have did it. But you guys were so, you know, made sure you wanted to add something to the, you know, to the pot, and you didn't. Like, what was the point of you just because it sounded good? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why you just didn't have to say anything?
right. So you're standing there trying to like process. This is where my dad is.
Right.
In this spot. And so then, what did you do after that?
I just cried. I didn't even know it was like mixed emotions because it was just a lot going on in my head. Like it was my first time being there, so I had that. I didn't really know what to say, and then just speaking to an empty space that really just pushed me over the edge. So I just cried, and I'm just like, yo, what am I even supposed to be saying right now? Like I was just, for a few minutes, I was just sitting there just crying.
That had to be difficult for you.
It was.
You know, like you said, it's if there was something, you know, there, a placard, a stone, something that you could, you know, feel as if, okay, I am talking to him. This is where he is, but not having that had to be just so like
It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. And then once I did start talking, I really didn't even want to talk about his life with, you know, my grandma and my mom and anything like that. Really anything hard. I was just telling him, like, my mom, she's okay, she's doing good. My grandma, same thing, she's okay, she's doing good. You know, telling him about my daughter, you know, just keeping things light. Like I thought that I was gonna go there and just spill out everything from how I felt growing up, and you know, once I found out about him and all that stuff, I didn't even want to do any of that once I actually got there.
How come?
I don't really know. Like I felt like, I don't know. I just felt like it was not necessary. Like I don't know. Like I didn't feel right doing that. Like to me, it felt like putting an unnecessary load on him for no reason. Even though that probably wasn't actually the case. Like obviously we're not actually talking. So,
Yeah.
but to me, that's just how I felt. Like I was putting all that extra stuff that really doesn't matter on him. Not that it doesn't matter, but I just didn't need to bring that up to, you know, in that moment.
Do you think you still need to, or not at all?
I don't know. But for my first time, I just didn't feel the need to. I don't know if maybe after a couple of visits I'll start, you know, easing into that. I don't know. But for that, I just didn't want to do that. I just wanted to, you know, tell him about, you know, me being okay and everything like that. And, you know, he would be obsessed with Jordan if he could see her and all that stuff. But I didn't want to put any of that heavy stuff on, you know, talk about it.
And maybe some of that you weren't ready for either.
Yeah,
you didn't want to have to delve into those emotions, and you know, it was just, I'm sure for you, just going there in and of itself was a major task.
Right.
Because we had talked about, you know, how it's taken you to this point in your life to get to a point where you could even acknowledge, like, that you wanted to go and see him in that sense. And maybe you just weren't, you know, you're just not ready to go there.
Yeah.
Not just not wanting to put it on him, but the unloading of that for yourself, you know.
It'll probably be a lot too.
Yeah, just too much for you at once. So it sounds to me like you did the right thing. You did what you felt was best in the moment.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you sound or feel good about that now.
Yeah.
You know, do you have plans to go back and see him?
I want to. I'm debating whether I want to go before I get that flag. So I'm not really sure. But for sure, that's not going to be my last time going, for sure. I don't know. I don't know what the time frame on getting the flag is. Like, once I pay for it, I don't know what the time frame is. I would have to call and see, and that would help determine whether I want to wait that long or not.
Yeah.
You know.
Was there anything that you didn't say that day that you wish you had said?
I can't say so because I like I said, I wanted to just kind of keep it like light, but I also really wasn't sure what to say. You know, even with that, like, it took me a couple minutes to even get to that. Like, I was just sitting there for a while. Like, after I was done crying, I still just sat there and was like, what am I supposed to be saying right now? Like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to say. I just don't know. You know?
It just has to come from the heart.
Yeah.
Which is what it sounds like. You just kind of went with what you felt was best to say at the time.
Yeah.
How are you feeling now that you've done that?
I feel good.
Yeah.
I'm glad I did it.
Good.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad I did it. Like I said, it's not going to be the last time. It was crazy because I was scrolling on Instagram this morning, and a suggestion of one of his brothers came up, like friend's suggestion or whatever came up, and I was just like, I so bad just wanted to go and message him, and I don't even know, say how disappointed I am in him and everybody else along with him, but I'm like, there's literally no point. Like, I would just be letting out my anger to the wrong person, you know? Like, there's no point. Not mentioning the plaque or, like, none of it is no point. Because they know it's not there. You know, I don't need to tell them. They know it's not there, you know? So, it would just be a load off for me, but it won't actually solve anything, so.
You're doing the right thing with because it feels right in your heart to be the one to get that for him, and that's all you need. You know that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, other people have to live with their choices.
I wonder if once it is there, if they will ever notice. Like, if they ever would just go there and be like, oh wow, like, there's actually a plaque there now, you know?
That's a good question.
I'm not confident. I mean, 30 years is a long time. You know? And I had a reason for not going there. You knew where he was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not like you didn't know and you had to know. You knew you were there.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Absolutely.
I said, there's so many of them. Not one of y'all. Like, it's just I don't know.
So how are you going to process that? You know, like being like upset or mad or irritated or whatever you're feeling about how no one else in the family stepped up and did that for him.
Just by doing it because it's I'm mad that more so not necessarily at them. It definitely has. They're definitely part of it because they took that on and then they just left it.
Yeah.
But more so just that there's nothing there. So once I get it there, like I can't have that heavy expectation for them. They've already shown me that they're not willing to do much of anything. So it's not like I have this high expectation for them and they didn't meet it. Like I have no expectation of them. So they didn't break anything necessarily, you know what I mean? And how I feel towards them. So I'm annoyed with them, but it's deeper than just the plaque for me as far as they're concerned. But once I get the plaque, that'll help me move past that. You know what I mean? Because yeah, they're involved in it, but again, I didn't have an expectation high of them that they just fell short of. You know what I mean? Like it'll just go back to normal, I guess. You know. But I think right now, just because it's not there, I kind of have to, not have to, but I kind of feel like I need to blame someone, and they're the blame. You know what I mean? Because they took the responsibility on, but at the same time, you know, if I knew that ahead of time, would I actually have believed that they would have done it anyway? You know what I mean? So if I knew ahead of time, like, oh, maybe, you know, they took that weight on themselves, I probably would have been like, okay, well, I'm going there. It could be 50-50, whether it's there or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I knew that ahead of time.
You
so
just expected.
I expected it to be
Which I think any one of us would.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You would have not expected to just see some grass and,
No. Right.
you know, the idea of even having to go to a cemetery and having to, like, talk to or connect with your dad is one thing. But then, you know, to just see the grass, I'm sure it was just...
Yeah, because I could have did that anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, like talk to a patch of grass and said it was my dad. You know what I mean? So I definitely think once I get that plaque, that'll help me move past the anger of it not being there. Because like I said, it's anger more so towards them, but not really towards them. I'm just mad that he doesn't have anything.
Yeah.
You know, and they just happen to be the reason because of it.
Yeah.
You know?
That makes sense. What do you think you're going to need for closure? You know, obviously having a placard there is going to help with that sense of closure. But closure in general, what do you think?
But with his family?
Just with him being gone. And then maybe, yes, with his family.
Him being gone, I guess, maybe a couple visits, getting some stuff out. I think that'll definitely help. His family, maybe the same thing. Going there a couple times, you know, just talking about it. But to be honest, I'm really not sure. Like it's kind of the same thing with my dad. Like I don't know them. I didn't have this high expectation of, you know, them. I didn't know. I don't know. Like I don't know them, so it's hard to feel like it's not hard to disconnect really. Like it is, because at the end of the day, they're still my freaking blood. But
and it's still a loss because it's a loss of like not knowing or not having that family in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for so long, I didn't even know they existed.
Right.
And as years went on, more people came up. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a weird situation.
Yeah.
Like, I knew about his sister first, and then a couple years later, found out about one brother. A couple years after that, another year or so after that, another. Like, you know what I mean? Just people just kept piling up. You know, and then I found out years and years later that his mom died. Didn't know nothing about her. You know what I mean? So it's just a weird situation. Um, I'm not sure what actual closure would look like. Like, I don't know if I actually have it, if I have to get it. I may have to do some forgiveness for them.
Okay.
Because of disappointment, which I really shouldn't have disappointment in them because I don't know them. They haven't been anything to me. But I am disappointed because I feel like regardless of what, I'm still your blood. You know what I mean? I'm still really, we're each other's connection to my dad. You know what I mean? So it's just, I guess I would have some forgiveness to do, and that might help with closure. I guess. I don't know.
Do you want to get to know them better?
I don't know how to answer that. Like, I really don't know how to answer that. I don't know. Like, I feel like I want to say yes, and then I feel like I want to say I don't care. You know what I mean?
And I think both of those are understandable.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I want to get to know them because I don't know them.
Right.
But maybe not because they've not been a part of my life
for this long. So it's
long.
like,
what's the point?
Right. And if it's just gonna be like a thing where it's like, okay, we're getting to know each other for like a day or two, and then I never hear from you again, then it's like, and that's kind of how it was with each person that I met. It was like, you know, talk for a little bit, and then we don't talk for forever.
Yeah.
You know, so I really don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, and that sometimes happens. Unfortunately, you know, family members will meet up at, you know, a later point in life, and they, you know, make plans to like get together, and then they just kind of fades off, and that doesn't happen.
Yeah. It's just a situation though, like with my dad and how he left. It just seems like you would want to keep that connection, especially if you say you guys are all close. You know what I mean? So it's like, what am I missing as far as that part of it was concerned? Because it just doesn't seem to make sense.
And so, my next question is, are there questions that you need answered? Because that might be different than getting to know that.
I mean, since they grew up with him, they can give me different information about him than my mom or my grandma would be able to. You know
Would you
what I mean?
want to know that? Like, more information about him, I guess?
Yeah, I guess so. But I'm not sure if maybe I can't handle it right now. Like, what even got him, all the things that led up to get him to the point of, you know, everything that happened.
That's true.
You know, right before me to, you know, you taking your life. Like, what was your childhood like that even got you to the point of being that far gone? You know?
I just wonder if you knew more about him and his past and kind of what he went through. Maybe it would help just to understand him a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As to why he's done what he's done. You know.
Yeah, but I mean.
But you may never get that.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think I'm okay with that because I don't know what I'm not getting. Right. You know what I mean? I don't know what I'm missing.
Right, and what you learn, you may not want to know.
Right.
You know, and that could make things harder.
Right.
for you. So maybe it is better to only know what you know now and just leave it at that.
Right.
You know, because, and I think we've talked about this before, sometimes just opening up that can of worms can make it, the more you know, the worse it might be, you know.
Right.
And I think you kind of found that true with the more you started to find out from your mom and grandmom, the harder it was for you, because then the more you know.
Right.
Like you want to know, but you don't want to know.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So yeah.
I think I'm okay. Like, I feel like I'm just okay either way. Like, if I never hear from any of them again, then it's just like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
If I do, I would definitely want it to be genuine and not just like drop in a couple things of information that I never hear from you again.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
You would want to have like a genuine relationship.
Yeah,
like,
right.
You would want them to get to know you and your daughter, and be a part of your
I
life.
guess because I don't know these people. They could be complete psychopaths. Maybe I don't want them anywhere around me or my daughter.
That's a
You
very
know what I
good
mean?
point.
I don't know them.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, because just because someone's family doesn't mean
They're not complete nuts.
Right. That you don't want, that you want them in your life.
Right.
Because maybe you don't.
Right.
So, and family is what you make of it. Doesn't have to necessarily, just because they're your family doesn't mean you have to have a relationship with them. Doesn't mean, and why should you be the one having to initiate that anyway?
I'm not. I'm absolutely not.
And so, I mean, it's unfortunate, but like you said, it is what it is.
Right.
And
but they know about me first. You know what I mean? Like my aunt was pressuring my mom when I was growing up about, making sure she could see me and, everything else, and threatening and saying things like, if I see her, I'm gonna tell her. This, mind you, I didn't know about my biological dad at this point, and she was threatening, like, if she see me in public, she would tell me, let me know everything, let me see her, blah, blah. And then you have the opportunity to where I can make my own decisions and know where to be found.
Yeah. What do you think would have happened though if that would have happened? If you would have found out much sooner in that way, do you think it would have been worse?
Through my aunt?
Mm-hmm.
It'd have been a lot worse.
I would think so.
It would have been a lot worse. And to be honest, I'm speaking to who would have been a random person to me. I'm not even sure. I just would have, unless they had some legit evidence that is undeniable for me to believe that, I would have been like, is this person nuts? Have they lost their mind? Yeah. And I would have told my mom, and depending on how that would have went, that conversation.
But then also think about what were her intentions? Because she really genuinely wanted you to know, because she felt it was fair. And why is that her place and not your mom's place?
Definitely not.
And so is her intention to just open up Pandora's box and, so that I don't think you would have taken well to, because it doesn't sound like her intentions were pure.
They're not. She's very, just from what I gather, the 2 times that I've seen her, it definitely was more plottish than, I genuinely need my niece to know what's going on. It definitely wasn't like that. Absolutely
it sounds like
not.
it was more like, I just want to expose this.
Oh yeah,
for
no,
the whole
absolutely,
world to know.
Right.
And I think that would have affected you much worse.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's bad enough to find out the way you did.
Right.
But that would have made it, I think, a lot worse.
I'd have lost it.
Yeah.
And like I said, in that moment, I probably just would have been like, is she nuts? Who even are you?
And then you would have went back to mom and grandma, I'm like, why is this woman telling me this? And they might have been like, I don't know what you're talking about, because they're not ready to, and
yeah, that'd have been messy.
That could have been very messy.
Unless she had something that I couldn't deny in front of me, then it would have been a lot worse as well. So I don't know, but I'm glad it didn't go that route.
Yeah. But that, again, do you want someone who wants to do that to you? Do you want that person in your life and in your daughter's life? even
Can't
though she's
say.
family.
Can't
Yeah.
say so. You know.
Mm.
I mean, not that people don't change. That was years ago, but
That's true.
I
But you don't know.
don't know.
Yeah.
Right. Like I barely knew who they were years ago. So to change into what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Are you gonna tell your mom that you went to see her?
Not unless she brings them up. I want to,
Yeah.
but considering that conversation that we last had about him,
But you have every right as an adult to want to do that and to be able to do that.
yeah, I don't think that she would, you know, come down on me for doing that. And even if she thought it, I would hope that she wouldn't have the courage to even say it out loud for me to hear, you know?
Yeah.
So, it's like, I mean, I'm grown and that's my dad. Like, what are you gonna tell me no? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Right. Because you need some closure.
right.
And that's what it's about. You know, at this point in your life.
Yeah.
So. And what about your daughter? What do you say to her?
As far as him,
Yeah.
nothing right now.
Yeah.
You know, way too heavy.
Well, that and she's too young for
Yeah,
that.
like that's way
Yeah.
too heavy. You
So
know.
that's something that you'll have to decide when and what do you say
Right.
to her, because she may have questions.
Oh yeah, she's
as
going
she gets
to.
older. You know, like, oh, what about your dad? And you know, and so you're gonna. I mean, and that'll give you time to figure out how you want to approach that with her. But that's a conversation that I'm sure will come at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I think the good thing now is that you're working on processing everything, and so maybe by that time you'll have gotten some closure, and it'll be not as difficult to have that conversation with
Right.
her, you know, when you feel she's ready to hear it. Not that anyone's really ready to hear that kind of information.
Yeah, right. Like,
you
how
know.
much of it do I even share?
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and that's something that you'll figure it out. You'll figure out what's right for her and for you.
Because even sometimes, just for me talking about it, like, I'm hesitant about how much I actually want to say, because though it's my story is putting out other people's story. Like, I
Yeah.
can't tell my story without shedding light on other people's stories.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's just like a weird position
Yeah.
that I feel like I'm in sometimes.
But as long as you know in your heart that it's because you're sharing how this has affected you and this is your story, you know, it's not about bashing someone else or putting their business out there. That's not what it's about. It's about, this is what's happened to me and this is how it's affected me. And now I have to figure out how to navigate through that.
Right.
And my daughter, how to navigate her through that. And understanding, you know, how that affects you.
Right.
So that's what it's about, you know. And I know that you're, you know, being cautious about, you're not name dropping and, you know. So just knowing that, like, this is your story and you have a right to share that,
Right.
you know. As long as you know you have good intentions of, this is for your healing process. You're not trying to make a mockery of other people, you know. So.
Could be difficult.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because there's so much to it, and it's not the prettiest picture. So,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like hard to get to the me part. Well, I want to say it's hard to get to the me part without opening their boxes, really. It's just weird. The whole situation is a lot.
But the alternative is to not say anything.
Right.
And is that good for you? To not say anything, to not share your story.
like it. I definitely don't want to be closed mouth because I grew up so much shielding what I want to say or not saying, not speaking up, and all that. So, I definitely don't want to go back there. Um, I think more so because my grandma is a little bit more free from the situation than my mom. So my mom can't even hear his name without cringing, you know, let alone have the story played out, told, or whatever. It's just.
And that's got to be hard for you because, you know, here's your mom and your grandma who you love, and here's your dad who you never really knew, and trying to make sense of all of that while still trying to continue those relationships with mom and your grandma, and without having to have that discussion about your dad, you know, because you have wanted answers and you do have questions, and we've talked about your mom has those answers, and she's not at a point where she's ready to open up and talk about some of that stuff.
Right.
And so, like, I'm sure for you, it's kind of hard to navigate through still having that relationship with her, but knowing there's like only so far you can go with that.
Yeah. Like, and most of the information, if I have any questions, I have to get it from my grandma. Like, my mom, out of the question. Like, absolutely not. You know, because it takes her back to that place of where she was.
Yeah, and she
concerning him, and she doesn't want to go back there. You know, but running from it doesn't help.
No.
But
that's something that she's gonna have to work through in her time.
I mean, not on her own.
Yeah. And sometimes people, you know, they just, you know, close out certain chapters of their life, or just shut it down, or they compartmentalize, or they just write it off. They don't want to deal with it.
Right.
And I mean, that's how some people cope. And, you know, opening that up for them might be too much.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard enough for you and you're working through it, but because you're choosing to work through it, choosing to feel all of that and talk about it in therapy, and talk about it, you know, with other people, and share that. Because for some people, if you were to hold on to that and never do anything with it, it could just really, really eat you up.
Yeah.
Like, just not being able to share that, not being able to make sense of it, not being able to ask questions, not being able to talk about it, could be really hard. But for some people, it's, we're just gonna put that over there. We're not gonna look at that.
Yeah. And it also really sucks too, because I'm not the type to like breeze past issues and just continue on like they never happened. Like, you know, argument happens and then you just go back to talking like it never happens, and never bring up what happened in that argument and talk me through that. I do not like that. And it's kind of that same situation I feel like I'm put in with my mom. It's like, not really an argument, but that whole situation, I have to act like that didn't happen and just proceed through life and not talk about that. I do not like doing that, but I'm forced to do that. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I just wish we could just really just sit down and just put everything out there and move forward, because then the moving forward will be genuine. Right now I feel like it's just, not that it's not genuine, but I feel like it's just, we're covering up what needs to be talked about. And how long are we supposed to do that for? Like, it just, I don't like doing that with
That's
anybody, you know?
Yeah.
I just don't like that.
Maybe your mom feels by answering some of those questions it'll do more damage than good. I don't know. But sometimes the not knowing is worse than the knowing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like you said, if you were to have all of the information, all of those answers to those questions, it probably wouldn't be, like, it probably would hurt and wouldn't be comfortable. but then you learn how to work through it, and like you said, there'd be more of a genuine, like, authentic relationship between the two of you because we've been able to work through all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not like I need like every stitch of, detail, but
Right.
I feel like the things that are contradicting, I need to be addressed.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I would get that, so it's kind of like I have no choice but to move forward with it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's hard enough to make sense of everything, but when things are contradictory, it's even
like,
harder.
Right.
Like, how does that doesn't make sense. And
Right.
so I agree that you should be able to have those, those answers, but you may not ever get
I
them.
may not ever do it. Like, I just have to kind of suck that up and figure out how to operate knowing or dealing with me not ever getting those answers.
Mhm.
Like, I have to figure out how I'm supposed to genuinely move through life despite how I actually feel or wanting to address it or, all that stuff. Like, putting that to the side and just moving
at
like
some
it
point-
never happened.
Yeah, and at some point you might have to accept that you're not going to get all that what you're asking for,
Yeah.
and that's a hard thing to accept. Doesn't mean you like it. It just means it is what it is. Like I have to be able to just move on with my life regardless. And you may have to look at it from that perspective at some point.
I think I kind of have, like, I don't have this hope that she's just gonna sit me down and talk about everything and clear up things for me. I would be surprised if it actually did happen, to be honest.
Yeah.
I would be really surprised. I'm not, just sitting around hoping that she. I mean, I would like that. That would be
Yeah.
amazing, but that actually happening, I'm wouldn't hold my breath.
And the fact that you're not expecting it of her and it not happening, because that'll cause more disappointment. If you don't have those expectations and you're just kind of like, well, I wish, I hope, that's not going to be as disappointing as if you're like expecting that from her and then
Not getting it.
not getting it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's about making sense of things that might not make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, and also I think just looking at how far your life has come since then, just over this past year alone, the changes that you've made in your life, and just looking at the overall growth in you as a person, and that's without that knowledge.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
So,
Do I really need it?
yeah.
Will it set me back and emotionally, will I need to start re-healing again?
Yeah, and that's hard to say.
Yeah, like, I know if I don't get those answers that I need or anything like that, it's for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it will set me back. Maybe I can't handle the actual truth of that whole situation.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that's a really good way to look at it too.
So I mean, I can only trust that if I'm supposed to have those answers, I'll get them. If not, I won't. And just, I mean, it is what it is, and I have to trust that either way it goes, I'm gonna be okay with it. You know.
That's a good point. And sometimes there's reasons why, like you had said before, like with God in your life, He only shows you what you need to know at that time. And even when you want more information or you want to know what's going on or the answers, He only reveals so much. And maybe that's true of this situation as well.
Because I look back, there's times that He shows me something like in today's world, and I went through that years and years and years ago, and just getting a revelation of it, now,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, oh, wow, that's what that was for years later.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, in His timing.
Yeah.
maybe then if I would have got it, I'd have lost it, freaked out, got scared, whatever the case is, you know. But his timing is his timing. So.
And maybe it's just not now is the time.
Right.
Maybe it will be revealed, you know, over your lifetime.
Mm.
But maybe just not now.
Right.
Who's to say?
Who knows?
And that may be something that your mom might be struggling with, is like the wanting to tell you, but the not knowing how, or the not knowing what to say, or and maybe at some point she'll need to let that, or take, you know, get that off of her chest and be able to let that go.
I don't know if I would think that she would even want to tell me that, because that would be exposing her not prettiest moments, you know, and I don't think that she would want to do that, not to us anyway, really anyone, but definitely not any of her kids, me, anybody else, you know. I mean, I could be wrong, but
that's a good point.
Knowing my mom, I can't see her wanting to like expose herself, you know, when it wasn't her best moments. That's hard. It really is hard to.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's a good.
You know, when you had your worst moment, and you have to like tell people about that, or you know, it's not the easiest thing until you actually heal from it. That makes it easier.
Yeah.
But especially in that moment, or if you haven't healed from it, or you know, it's, or even admitted it to yourself.
Yeah.
Chances are you're probably not gonna want
to
share. You know. Because the biggest moment that I had that I look back on, like, what was I thinking with the whole situation with Jordan, the dad, my ex, all that.
Yeah.
That was, for me to actually admit that I did something that selfish and ridiculous, it was really hard.
Yeah.
And I had to learn how to forgive myself. Other people were forgiving me before I even forgave myself, you know.
Yeah.
That was really hard. So like, I can only imagine something worse, because it is worse, the situation she's dealing with, worse, having to come to terms with it yourself in order to, and then share it for other people to then judge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because even still, when I say that, I expect judgment. You know what I mean? Whether they show it or not, I expect, because if I were to hear that, I would be thinking like, dang, that was pretty harsh. Like, you did that? Like, you know what I mean? So,
and
but when you,
doesn't want that.
But once you get to healing, it makes things easier. Like, I'll expect it, but I'm still willing to share. You know what I mean? Despite how you're going to feel about it. Why? Because I've healed, you know, from it. But if you haven't gotten to that point, it makes the situation so much harder.
Yeah, that's very true.
And she has and from what my hardest part was compared to where her story is, it's a lot harder. I can only imagine what that would be like for me if I had to deal with something like that and share it. You know what I mean? And I don't think she wants to do that digging. Yeah. You know. Just my perspective.
No, that's a really good point that you make. You know, absolutely. Because I would imagine with her there's more shame involved. With you, I'm a product of what's happened, but I'm not the cause of what's happened.
Yeah. And
she may feel that, and you're right, she may never want to have to open that up.
Right.
And yet, you still love your mom.
Of course.
And she's, you know, she's in your life, and you choose to have a relationship with her, and, you know, your daughter as well. So that just goes to show that, you know, you have forgiven her on some levels, because you're able to still have a relationship with her regardless. Mm-hmm. You're able to kind of separate that, what happened and the person she was then, from who she is now.
Right.
And not everyone can do that. especially in a situation like you've been through.
And no one's above mistakes. Like, and you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I think
Yeah.
that's like she would feel more judged by the situation than like, listen, I'm telling this was my story. I was a hot mess then, but I'm where I am now. You
Yeah.
know, she doesn't, she's not gonna present it like that. You know what I mean? She I think she would feel more judged, and I don't think that has anything to do with anybody else necessarily. I feel like she would be judging herself
Yeah.
because of who she was then, not necessarily what anybody else has said about it. You know what I mean?
That's
Because
true.
again, everybody has done things where they're not proud of, or they, you
Mhm.
know, something that shame is attached to, you know. So it I think for her, how she actually feels about it is more um, to the forefront than how I would actually perceive it now.
Mhm.
It maybe then,
Yeah.
years ago when she first told me, I would have been like, "Have you lost your mind?" Like, you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
But now I see things a lot differently, and I definitely wouldn't be listening to her ready to judge. I just want genuine clarity and understanding of how did we get here? Like,
Mhm.
how did he get here? How did, you know, you get there? Everything. Like, how?
Yeah. So I think this is probably a good place to stop for today,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of recognizing like what you've gone through and how you've been able to make changes in your life, and you're, continuing to heal and continuing to grow, and understanding that not everyone is in the same place as you are in their healing process or their growth process, and loving them despite that.